Hi, and welcome to this series from the SAP Partner Engineering team. My name is Julie, and in this series of videos, we're taking a look at some integration scenarios using APIs for SAP SuccessFactors. For this series, we're going to be taking a look at a background check integration for the recruiting module. And for this scenario, we'll take a look at two integration types: outbound from SAP SuccessFactors to the partner application, and we'll look at two different options for that, or inbound from the partner application to SAP SuccessFactors. First, let's take a look at the outbound scenarios. For option 1, we have the background check order being placed by the recruiter in the UI. So it's a one application request that is going out to the partner server and initiating that order. To configure this, we need to have the integration center template filled out with the different fields that are going to be used and the destination server configured for the integration center to be able to talk to the partner server. And for option 2, we can load multiple applications all at once, doing basically a bulk order to request the background check. For the configuration of this, we need to have the same setup in the integration center with the integration center template with the fields that we need and the destination server configuration and settings. Additionally, we're going to use the intelligent services tool, which is going to allow us to create a trigger based on an event that's happening through our approval workflow. So as the applications are changed in mass to requesting a background check, then that event actually triggers the integration center to then go and send that bulk request to the partner server. And then the results are written back as it was with option 1. So in our first scenario, the recruiter uses the UI to initiate the order. And in the second scenario, the movement of the job applications, whether it's one or many, creates a status change that then creates the event that triggers the integration center. For more information and a comparison on the two different options, we can go to the Recruiting tab and take a look at background check vendors and see our download guide. And in this zip file, you'll find the download guide for inbound, outbound option 1 and 2, as well as some sample query information that we'll be using in these videos. But here you can see we have a table that compares the differences between option 1 and option 2. So that's a good thing to take a look at. All right, so let's go through our configuration steps. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and log in with our admin user, and we want to check our roles and permissions are set correctly for this. And we're going to go to Manage Permission Roles. And we want to take a look at the system admin user and take a look at the permissions. And then we want to go to the Manage Recruiting module. And we want to make sure that we have the background check central checked or applied. And then in the Manage Integration Tools, we want to take a look and make sure that we have the access to the integration center, and then also the allow users to execute application UI or event-based integrations. Now this is a new permission that was added after 1911 to make a distinction between events raised either through the UI or from the intelligent services tool. So we're going to go ahead and click done for that and save our changes. And let's go back to the admin center. And the next thing we want to do is we want to take a look at the background check central. So if we go into our tools and we scroll down to our recruiting area, we see our background check central. So let's go ahead and open up that. And we're going to go ahead and turn that on. And then we're going to do other background check vendor and save our changes. Okay, we saved those changes. Let's go back to the admin center. Okay, so for our next step, we're actually going to use the provisioning tool because we need to go in and make sure that company-wide across all users that we have some settings. So I've gone into my provisioning tool. Mine happens to be demo for SuccessFactors provisioning. You should have the URL to your individual instance of your system. And what we want to go is we're going to go ahead and open up that company. And there's a couple things that we want to look for here. The first is we're going to look for the OData API audit log. And we'll find that here under API settings and tools. So if we click on that, we just want to make sure that it's actually enabled. And we can go ahead and keep the default settings for now. It's just helpful to have this audit log turned on so we can check the API request responses in case we need to debug something later on. So we can save if we've changed anything. Mine was already enabled, so I don't need to make that change. And then the second thing that I want to look for is under the Manage Recruiting. I want to get the job requisition template because this is what we're going to use to identify the fields that we want to pass back and forth. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and download that and save it locally and make our updates, and then we can import the changes. So if we look for the standard job requisition, I can go ahead and export that, and it should download to my local desktop here. So before I make any changes, it's always good practice to make a copy or save my original template just in case. So I'll just make sure I have a copy here. So if we're going to make the changes manually, there are a couple things that we need to do. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of fields that we're going to add to our job requisition template to connect our background information. So if we go to our pick list, and we're going to use BG for background. Let's just check and make sure that we don't have any associated here. We don't. So let's go ahead and add our first one, which is going to be BG package. And we'll just use the same and save. And we can add a couple records into that. And so the first one, let's say we have 55555, and the label is going to be Social Security check. And then we don't need to put in any of our minimum or maximum values for the Social Security. So let's go ahead and create that. So now we see we have our first code, and we continue on with that. So we can add another one. Let's do 6s, and we'll call this one employment check. And go ahead and create that. And let's do one more for our driver's license check. Okay. So now if we go back to our pick list, and let's create one more, and this time we're going to do BG account. And this is actually optional. If your customer has more than one account with you, it's a good idea to include an account ID. A typical use case is where customers have different departments or different areas, and they need to separate the account for each department. So recruiters for the marketing department get a different list than the recruiters for the HR department or finance, etc. It's not currently used in the integration, but it is added to the job requisition template for reference. Okay, so we added our BG account and we added our BG package fields. And let me just quickly show you here in the sample file where we've added those two pick lists to our field definition IDs. And another update we want to do is for the permissions. So for each field permission section, the field reference ID of BG account and BG package need to be added. And we're going to look for one more update. We want to look for the feature permission type background check. And if we don't see this section in our requisition template, then we want to go ahead and add it. So if I made all those changes manually to my file, then I could just upload my existing file. Or I can use the sample that was in the zip file that we got from the Jam site for this particular project. So since I'm in the sales demo, I'm going to go ahead and use that file and upload it back into my job template. And I'll just copy and paste from my sample file into my template file. And then I can go back into the provisioning tool and import my template by choosing that new updated file and clicking upload. Now I'll get a warning message that I'm changing an underlying template. So I'm going to say OK. And then I may get some warning messages, but as long as they're in green, I'm going to go ahead and ignore those. Okay, so now that we've updated our template, let's go back into our admin center. And now we want to look at some permissions and roles for our recruiting module. So let's go ahead and go into manage permissions for the system admin. And the first one we want to look for is the manage recruiting permissions. And we just want to check that the background check initiate and background check update are enabled. The next thing we want to look at is make sure that all of our OData API permissions are enabled. So let's just go ahead and enable those. Specifically, we're looking at the job requisition template right now. But let's just go ahead and turn all of those on and say done. And then the last one we want to do is we're going to go to the metadata framework. And we want to double check that our access to MDF OData API is turned on. So we can go ahead and hit done, even though we didn't make any changes, ours was already turned on. And of course, then we want to save our changes. So now we've made all our changes to our user permissions and roles and our job requisition template in the fields that we're going to associate with the background check. The next thing we're going to take a look at is configuring the integration center settings, and we'll do that in the next video. Thank you.